think you've seen every episode of your favorite childhood cartoons? Nah, fam. Those complete series box sets you bought, yeah, they're missing some seriously dark episodes that networks buried so deep, most people don't even know they exist. But what if I told you that some of the most beloved animated shows in history had episodes so controversial, so disturbing, or so politically incorrect that they were banned from ever airing again? I'm talking about episodes that were pulled after just one broadcast, content that was deemed too traumatic for children, and storylines that crossed lines nobody knew existed until it was too late. We're not just talking about simple censorship here. These are episodes that expose the darker side of animation studios, reveal uncomfortable truths about the entertainment industry, and show just how far cartoon creators were willing to push boundaries before someone finally said absolutely not. I've spent months tracking down bootleg recordings, interviewing former animators who broke their NDAs, and digging through network archives that were supposed to be sealed forever. What I found is going to completely change how you see these innocent childhood shows. We're talking about suicide references, graphic violence, adult themes that somehow made it past censors, and political messages that were way too real for Saturday morning television. These 5 classic cartoons each had at least one episode that was so problematic, networks didn't just refuse to rerun them, they tried to pretend they never existed in the first place. The final cartoon on this list had an episode so disturbing that it allegedly caused psychological trauma in children and led to lawsuits that are still sealed today. No cap. Tom and Jerry, Blue Cat Blues, the episode that made kids cry. Let's start with something that's gonna mess you up. You remember Tom and Jerry as harmless slapstick comedy, right? Well, there's an episode from 1956 called Blue Cat Blues that is straight up the most depressing thing ever animated for children, and it's been quietly removed from most collections because of what it implies. Here's what happens. Tom falls in love with a female cat, but she chooses a richer cat instead. Tom becomes severely depressed, starts drinking heavily, and the episode shows him contemplating ending his life by sitting on train tracks waiting for a locomotive. But here's where it gets absolutely twisted. Jerry, who's been watching this whole thing unfold, sees his own girlfriend leave him for another mouse. And the episode ends with both characters sitting on the train tracks together as a train whistle approaches. The episode literally ends with implied double suicide, fam. This wasn't subtle metaphor, it was showing children that when life gets too hard, giving up is an option. Parents who saw this episode were absolutely horrified. There are documented reports of children asking their parents disturbing questions about death and depression after watching it. But here's the really messed up part. The animators knew exactly what they were doing. William Hanna and Joseph Barbera later admitted in interviews that they were going through personal struggles and channeled their own dark thoughts into this episode. They thought it would be artistic and meaningful, but they didn't consider the psychological impact on young viewers. But here's where it gets darker. This wasn't the only time Tom and Jerry crossed serious lines. Scooby-Doo, the dynamic Scooby-Doo affair, when Mystery Inc. got too real. This is gonna blow your mind, but there's a lost Scooby-Doo episode that was banned because it accidentally predicted a real-world tragedy and got way too close to actual government conspiracies. I'm talking about an episode that aired once in 1972 and then disappeared forever because it made people in very high places extremely uncomfortable. The dynamic Scooby-Doo affair had the gang investigating what they thought was a fake haunting at a government research facility, but the episode revealed that the monster was actually a whistleblower trying to expose illegal human experiments being conducted on prisoners and mental patients. The episode showed documents, referenced real locations, and included details about government programs that weren't supposed to be public knowledge. Here's where it gets absolutely insane. 3 weeks after this episode aired, a real government whistleblower came forward with nearly identical information about actual illegal experiments happening at the same type of facilities shown in the cartoon. The coincidence was so disturbing that federal investigators actually questioned the show's writers about their sources and how they obtained information that was classified at the time. But the most twisted part, the episode's villain wasn't just some guy in a mask, it was a government official who was revealed to be covering up these experiments, and the episode ended with him being arrested by real federal agents, not local police. This was way too real for a kids' show, and it implied that the government was actively involved in covering up crimes against citizens. Child psychologists also raised concerns because the episode showed trusted authority figures as the real monsters, which was considered too psychologically damaging for young viewers who needed to trust adults and institutions. But that's nothing compared to what Sesame Street was hiding from parents. Sesame Street: David's Near-Death Experience, the episode that traumatized a generation. Okay, wrap your head around this. Sesame Street, the most trusted name in children's television, produced an episode so psychologically disturbing that it allegedly caused widespread nightmares and had to be pulled after causing what child development experts called mass childhood trauma. The episode, which aired only once in 1983, dealt with the adult character David having a serious medical emergency on screen. But this wasn't just a simple David feels sick storyline. We're talking about a graphic depiction of a heart attack, ambulances, hospital scenes, and David actually flatlining in front of the child characters. The episode showed Big Bird and the other characters dealing with the very real possibility that David might die. But here's where it gets absolutely horrifying. The episode included a sequence where David has a near-death experience and describes seeing deceased family members calling to him from the other side. This was supposed to be educational content about death and grieving, but it was so realistic and intense that children watching had severe psychological reactions. Parents reported that their kids became obsessed with death, started having panic attacks about adults in their lives dying, and some children developed what psychologists called anticipatory grief disorder, constantly worrying that the people they loved were going to suddenly die like David almost did. Emergency rooms actually reported an increase in children being brought in with anxiety attacks in the weeks following the episode's broadcast. The most disturbing part? The show's educational consultants had warned against making this episode, but the writers pushed forward because they thought it was important to address mortality with children. They didn't anticipate that showing a beloved adult character nearly dying would be so traumatic for young viewers who couldn't separate fiction from reality. But this wasn't even the darkest thing a children's show tried to get away with. The Flintstones, The Gambler, When Bedrock Got Too Adult. This is gonna mess with your perception of the Flintstones forever. You thought it was just a harmless Stone Age sitcom, right? Well, there's a banned episode that exposed the show's creators' real intentions. They were making adult content disguised as children's entertainment, and The Gambler proved it. The episode, which was produced but never aired, showed Fred developing a serious gambling addiction that destroys his family's finances and nearly ends his marriage to Wilma. But this wasn't cartoon-level consequences. We're talking about realistic depictions of addiction, domestic arguments that got physical, and Fred stealing money from Barney to feed his gambling habit. The episode showed him lying, manipulating, and eventually hitting rock bottom in ways that were way too real for animation. Here's where it gets twisted. The episode was originally written to address adult gambling addiction, with Wilma threatening to leave Fred and take Pebbles with her. There were scenes of Fred having withdrawal symptoms, attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings, and dealing with loan sharks who threatened his family. This was serious adult drama with real psychological depth, not the lighthearted comedy parents expected. But the most disturbing part was that the episode revealed how gambling was being normalized throughout the series. Looking back at other episodes, fans realized that Fred and Barney were constantly betting on dinosaur races, playing poker, and engaging in risky financial schemes. The show had been subtly promoting gambling culture to children for years without parents realizing it. Network executives pulled the episode when they realized it would expose how inappropriate the show's overall content really was. If parents started analyzing the gambling references throughout the series, they might notice other adult themes that had been flying under the radar, like domestic violence, financial irresponsibility, and toxic masculinity. But the most shocking revelation is what they tried to hide in the final cartoon on this list: Looney Tunes, Censored 11, and the episode that destroyed careers. Wrap your head around this. There's not just one banned Looney Tunes episode, there's an entire collection called The Censored 11 that Warner Brothers has buried so deep, they've spent millions of dollars making sure you never see them. But there's one episode in particular that didn't just get banned, it ended careers, triggered lawsuits, and exposed systematic racism in the animation industry that was way worse than anyone imagined. The episode I'm talking about featured characters in blackface, used racial slurs that were considered unacceptable even in the 1940s, and depicted scenarios that were so offensive they made other animators quit in protest during production. But here's the most disturbing part. This wasn't just ignorance or different times. Internal documents show that studio executives knew these cartoons were harmful and produced them anyway because they thought controversy would boost ratings. What makes this even more twisted is that these episodes were specifically designed to test how far they could push racist content before audiences would complain. The animation studio was literally conducting social experiments using cartoon characters to see what level of prejudice American audiences would accept as entertainment. Children were being exposed to this content as part of a calculated strategy to normalize discrimination. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. When civil rights groups started protesting these cartoons in the 1960s, Warner Brothers didn't just quietly retire them. They launched a campaign to discredit the protesters, hired private investigators to dig up dirt on civil rights leaders, and even planted fake fan mail claiming that children loved these characters and didn't see anything wrong with them. The final straw came when a group of animators who had worked on these episodes came forward with evidence that studio executives had specifically instructed them to make the racist content more extreme and offensive. These whistleblowers revealed that there were internal memos discussing how to use animation to influence children's attitudes about race and social hierarchy. The most chilling part? Some of these episodes were still being shown in schools and libraries decades after they were banned from television, because educational institutions didn't get the memo about their removal. Entire generations of children were exposed to this content in classroom settings while their parents had no idea what they were watching. So which revelation shocked you most about these banned episodes? Drop it in the comments below. Subscribe if your childhood just got a reality check, and remember, not everything animated was made with innocent intentions.